All right, good evening and welcome to the New Haven Museum. My name is Cynthia Riccio and I'm the Director of Programs and Planning here at the museum. Tonight we are happy to host Albertus Magnus College Interim Director of Library Services and College Archivist, Catie White, for a presentation, Fearless Females of Albertus. This final presentation in White's Celebrating a Century lecture series will focus on key female figures in the history of Albertus Magnus College, highlighting stories of faculty, staff, and students from 1925 to the present. White notes that as an all-female institution for its first 60 years, the school produced many fearless women who have gone on to do extraordinary things within and outside of the college. White notes the difficulty in telling the story of Albertus without mentioning a few key characters. In celebration of Women's History Month, you will have an opportunity to go deeper into the defining characters of school by focusing on some lesser-known figures and their contributions. Whether they were living in the 1920s or the 2020s, Albertus women have always followed their dreams, pursued their passions, and become their purpose in any era, she adds. During her presentation, White will highlight some of the remarkable Albertus Magnus College faculty, staff, and alumni who have been acclaimed for their first. I'm not going to mention any of the names because I'm going to leave all of that to Catie. Catie White is the Interim Director of Library Services and College Archivist at Albertus Magnus College. She holds a master's degree in Library and Information Science from Simmons University and a Bachelor of Arts from St. Michael's College. With a decade of experience in the library and museum field, she has a passion for research and uncovering stories from the past that may not have been previously told. She is the author of Albertus Magnus College, Fearless Endless Truth, Celebrating a Century of Impact Through Education, Faith, and Tradition, 1925 to 2025, a new and updated history of Albertus Magnus College to mark the college centennial, which, if you go on the back table there, she has a little QR code and you can purchase the book. So, welcome, Catie.
Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. All right, let me just move that a little bit. All right. Awesome. And let's test the technology. Okay, brilliant. All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third and final lecture here at the New Haven Museum in our Celebrating a Century series.
Oh. Closer to you for the live stream there.
Brilliant, thank you. So, as Sydney mentioned, my name is Catie White, and I am thrilled to be here with you tonight presenting Fearless Females of Albertus Magnus College. So Fearless Females is a play off of our athletics tagline, which are the Fearless Falcons. Those are our athletes on campus. So we have our Fearless Female Falcons throughout history presented to you here tonight. So if you are familiar with Albertus, you'll certainly recognize a few names throughout this presentation. But for a lot of them, it's the first time that their stories are being told in quite a while. So I'm very excited to be presenting them to you tonight. And so we will hear about Albertus faculty, staff, students who eventually become alumni across 100 years of the college's history. So with that, we will start, there we go, with Mother Stephanie Moen. So it's very difficult to start any story of Albertus without mentioning Mother Moen. She was the Mother General of the Dominican Sisters of St. Mary's of the Spring, who are today's Dominican Sisters of Peace, from 1923 until 1947. And to describe Mother Stephanie, Sisters Ruth Casper and Rosalie Graham wrote a 2006 article in which they say if prejudice is the virtue most closely associated with cautious progress, Stephanie Moen was deficient. She was a courageous risk taker. Her 24-year tenure as leader of the Dominican Sisters of St. Mary's of the Springs was marked by a succession of educational and missionary ventures that defied conventional wisdom. So this fearless female certainly accomplished seemingly anything that she set her mind to. During her time as the prioress and leader of the Dominican Sisters, she opened Albertus Magnus College in September of 1925. And Albertus was New England's first Catholic, residential, liberal arts college for women. So something like Albertus did not exist yet in the world of New England, let alone in 1925. This was kind of a surprising idea to the sisters, as they already had a institution of higher learning. They had the College of St. Mary's of the Spring, which is today's Ohio Dominican University in Columbus, Ohio. And when the idea of opening a college in Connecticut was proposed, it was originally met with opposition. They already had a college. What in the world could they do with this other institution, halfway across the country? But Mother Stephanie prevailed, and she ultimately opened up Albertus, seeing this opportunity for women in New Haven that was not there before. She continues with her vision of Catholic education for all, and in fact, in 1928, she and 5 other sisters leave from Ohio and go to China to establish schools there to help improve the lives of people who were impacted by the Sino-Japanese War. And throughout her tenure, by the time we get to the end of her first term in 1929, Sister Gregory Berry, who's the supervisor of schools, reports to the general chapter that the congregation staffs and administers 2 colleges, 4 academies, so like high school level education, 26 parochial schools at the junior and elementary school level, and all in, they enrolled 12,268 students. So the sisters were certainly busy in the mid to late 1920s, and Mother Moen was at the front of it all. So today, Mother Moen is still the first introductory that a lot of people get to Albertus. She's remembered on campus through Moen Hall, which is the home of our admissions office. So she's still the first figure that people encounter on campus today. And Moen Hall is also home to our advancement office, the Office of Alumni, and our marketing department as well. A name also familiar to those on campus is that of Bree. So here we meet Dr. Josephine Bree, and she is one of the first laypersons to be hired at Albertus Magnus College. So to be considered a member of the faculty, you had to first off be Catholic to teach at our Catholic college, but you did not necessarily have to be a member of the clergy or a sister or anything like that. So she was hired to teach classics and Latin in 1926 and stayed with the college until 1971. And what's remarkable is during her 45-year tenure at the college, she was fiercely loyal to Albertus. And in 1930, when we were at the dawn of the Great Depression, money's getting tight, purse strings are kind of drawing in at Albertus, Josephine Bree sacrifices her salary. She goes to the dean of students and says that she saved her earnings and had planned a trip to Europe as a preliminary for her doctorate. But when Albertus's financial difficulties arose, she came immediately and offered to cancel her passage, postpone her trip, and the securing of her doctorate, and to come to teach for Albertus in 1930 for nothing. So she believed in Albertus so much she was willing to give up her livelihood, not get her PhD in classics, and keep Albertus open. To which Sister Dorlita, who was dean at the time, said, "Thank you very much. We refuse to accept this sacrifice," but it was proof in Bree's faith in Albertus. So fortunately, Bree does go on to get her doctorate degree from Yale, and in 1964, she receives the Pro Ecclesia et Pontifex Award from Pope Paul VI for outstanding work as president of the Hartford Archdiocesan Council of Catholic Women. And upon her retirement in 1972, she was awarded an honorary doctorate from the college. And today, we still remember her in the form of Bree Commons. So Bree Commons is a common area connected to Aquinas Hall, which is our academic building. And it's more of a gathering spot for students to relax and study. There is a Starbucks, and our campus store is located there as well. But I think it's a fitting tribute to someone who was so willing to sacrifice her own personal, comforts and livelihood to uphold Albertus. And so now she provides a space for students to kind of relax and check in on themselves as well. All right. So a year after Josephine Brie comes to campus, we have Madame Marcelle Bovary, who very much believed in Albertus as well. Marcelle is originally from Boston, and she is a woman of firsts. So in 1885, she's the first woman to graduate from MIT with a concentration in biology. She's awarded the first fellowship in biology at Bryn Mawr in 1887, and was the first woman to be admitted into the science department at Würzburg University in Germany in 1896 to pursue her doctorate in biology. And while she's there, she studies under a gentleman by the name of Theodore Bovary. And naturally, being the only female student in class, she and Theodore form a relationship, fall in love, and she marries the lab professor. So subsequently, because they do marry in 1897, she does not finish her PhD work, but she becomes integral in her husband's work. So Theodore Bovary is an amazing scientist, and together they conduct several experiments on the chromosome theory of inheritance, which today still informs cancer research and how folks get cancer if it's running within the family and things like that. So we're still referring to their research from the early 1900s. And Theodore gets all the credit, of course, and Marcella was there every step of the way, but she never receives formal recognition for her contributions to her husband's work. Theodore will die in 1915, and Marcella continues her work in the field of biology. So she comes to Albertus in 1927 and founds our biology and science department, and she actually continues working on Theodore's research, and she translates his Origin of Malignant Tumors from the original German, in which it was published, to English in 1929 while she's working for Albertus on campus. So she introduced not only the English-speaking world to her and her husband's work, but she introduced Albertus students to a whole world that these women couldn't possibly have dreamed of getting into without people like Marcella opening the doors for them. Also, while she's at Albertus, she maintains constant correspondence with her daughter Margaret. So this is Margaret Bovary. Margaret was born in the year 1900, and she stays in Germany while her mother is here in the States. So she becomes a journalist and is known as Dr. M. Bovary. She does not publish under her real name. And being a journalist in Germany in 1920s, there's grumblings going on, and so she does report on the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, but privately she does not like them. She remains staunchly against them in private and in letters to her mother, but publicly she is reporting on what's happening. So Marcella wrote to her daughter weekly between 1927 and 1950. We are very fortunate to have all of their letters in the archives at Albertus. There's about 760 of them. They're absolutely fascinating. So, Marcella checks in on Margaret and says, what's going on? How's the weather? She's basically your mother texting you every day, but in 1927. And Margaret's like, Mom, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. So, but they're really fun to read. Marcella will die in 1950, and Margaret actually maintains contact with various professors on campus who she's befriended throughout the years, and maintains correspondence and connection with Albertus until her death in 1975. So also tangling in the politics of World War II is Dr. Ruth Gillespie. And she also was a founding member of the Albertus faculty, and she teaches German and Spanish. So she will enjoy a 42-year tenure at Albertus, and she champions the Spanish language and the Spanish culture on campus. So this is kind of the first time that we see, Hispanic culture truly take root on campus at Albertus. And during the Second World War, she works for the Office of Naval Information as a translator of material relating to the Pacific Islands for the use of the Naval Task Force. And that's all I know about what she did. I would love to know more. But after the war, she does return back to Albertus and translates again, but this time it is plays and literature. For students to either use in the classroom or perform on stage. And she also is involved with the Spanish Club both at Albertus and at Yale. She will retire in 1972 and receive an honorary doctorate for her contributions to the enlargement of our cultural horizons. So she's very cool. And of course, after talking about all of these faculty, they do teach students. So here is our first graduating class, the class of 1928. So we have 12 students who complete their degree in this first graduating class. And of these 12 women, 2 become religious sisters. And the rest of the lay members, we have 4 teachers: Marie Seffarelli, Mary McKeon, Catherine Stars, Gertrude Sternschust, 2 in the business side of the telephone company, who are Ruth Boyce and Kathleen O'Connor. And the business side of the telephone company were like service monitors who listened in on your telephone conversations to make sure the lines were working, or if the switchboard all of a sudden went off, they would run in and fix it. And so the fact that there were 2 women working on the business side of the telephone company, not as your switchboard girl, as you probably would expect, or your telephone operator rather, it's kind of like the equivalent of today's students going into AI. It was this new field. And so the literature from 1928 is very excited that our alums are in this new field. Among their peers, we also have a stage actress, who's Marian Doherty, and a secretary, who's Elizabeth Walsh. Of the 2 remaining class members, we have Jan Gerber, who went to Yale to pursue graduate studies in Romance languages, and Esther Budd, who also went on to continue her education at Yale. And I'm absolutely fascinated by Esther. So she is the only daughter and child of Dr. Frederick Budd, who is a general practitioner here in New Haven. And she follows very, very closely in her father's footsteps. So after graduating from Albertus, she goes on to get her BSN from Yale and a master's degree from Columbia. And shortly after graduating from Columbia, she returns to Yale New Haven Hospital as the assistant director of nurses. And while she was there, she taught at the Yale School of Nursing from 1931 to 1942. And during the Second World War, Esther will enlist in the Yale unit of the Army Nurse Corps and was stationed at the 39th General Hospital Unit in New Zealand. So she is Lieutenant Colonel Esther Budd because of that. Returning after the war, she actually will settle in Syracuse, New York, and become the nursing director at Syracuse Memorial Hospital and a professor at Syracuse University School of Nursing. And she also was vice president of the New York State Nursing Board of Directors. So this woman truly, truly did it all. And so she receives an honorary degree from Albertus in 1950 and retires from nursing in 1969. So she has a very, very long nursing career and was one of our first graduates. So following her, we have Sister Nazarena, otherwise known as Julia Crota, which is how you will find her in the records of Albertus. She graduates from Albertus in 1935. And she actually is a transfer student. So she was at the Yale School of Music and decided she did not want to pursue music, so she comes to Albertus in 1932 to study language and literature. And during her junior year at Albertus in 1934, she attends a Holy Week retreat with the Dominican sisters on campus. And while she is on this retreat, she witnesses a vision of Jesus. And he comes to her and says, "You must join me in the desert." And then he disappears. So Julia can't get this vision out of her head. She's constantly thinking about it. She goes to the priest on campus and tells him about it, and he dismisses it as an act of imagination. She's studying literature, she's reading too many novels, you know, she's just making this up. So she graduates in 1935 with a BA in literature in French, but she can't stop thinking about that vision. So in 1937, she enters the Carmel of Newport, Rhode Island, and in December of 1937, she will travel to Rome to make her final vows as a Carmelite nun in the fall of 1940. And it is there where she becomes Sister Nazarena. In 1959, she becomes a hermit. So she begins her hermitage in her cell at the St. Antonio Abbey in Rome, where she lives in total isolation, and her only interaction with the outside world is through letters. So today we do have her correspondence. She wrote nearly 400 letters where she advised, counseled, and offered guidance to friends, families, spiritual leaders. Whoever asked would receive a reply. And she remained in isolation as a hermit until her death in 1990, which was 31 years after entering isolation. Come on. There we go. So returning back to Albertus, our first generation of faculty and students are now kind of giving way to a second generation. So here we have Dr. Dorothea Rudnick, and she was handpicked and hired by Madame Marcella Bovary, who we met a few slides ago. So Dr. Rudnick earned her PhD in 1931 from the University of Chicago, where she focused on the field of embryology. So she was playing with the embryos of rats and chicks, to be specific. And while she was working at Albertus in 1952, she was awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship to continue that work in orgasmic biology and ecology. So she is the author of numerous books and scientific articles, but most importantly, she translates Fritz Baltzer's Theodore Bovary, Life and Work of a Great Biologist, into English from the original German. So this is in 1967, so this is after Marcella's death, but Margaret is still with us at this time. So again, it just continues that family legacy of the Bovarys. And then Rudnick is who Margaret keeps in contact with after her mother's death at Albertus. So when she retires in 1977, after 37 years at Albertus, she also received an honorary doctorate of science. And just like our legacy professors, we have legacy students and families. So if you remember Josephine Bree, this is her niece, Judge Ellen Bree Burns. And Burns graduated summa cum laude from Albertus in September of 1944. So you'll notice she's the class of 1944A. So during the Second World War, we had a huge boom of students, and there was a call for students to quickly enter into the workforce to join the war effort. So we had multiple graduations, and you could accelerate your degree and do it in 2.5 to 3 years instead of 4. So this is what Ellen decided to do. So she graduates in September. She goes on to graduate from Yale Law School in 1947 and has an incredible law career from there. So she is the first female federal judge in Connecticut. She's the first woman to serve on the Connecticut Supreme Court. And she's the second female state judge in Connecticut history. And she will serve on the bench until the age of 91. So she was quite the powerhouse.
And the Bree family legacy does not end with her. So in addition to her aunt, Josephine Bree, Ellen's sister, Marilyn Bree, and Ellen's daughter, Mary Ellen Burns, also attended Albertus. So we are quite indebted to the Bree family. And another student who went on to shatter glass ceilings is Mary Redden, class of 1946. And she graduates magna cum laude with a economics degree from Albertus, and she's our first economics major. So she graduates in 1946, and immediately after goes to work for Merrill Lynch. You heard of that company. So she is a junior analyst, and then quickly jumps into the role of senior analyst, and by 1954 she's gained 2 graduate degrees from NYU and was appointed as senior specialist in drugs, cosmetics, and merchandising. So she was keeping track of the movement in the hair world and things that concerned women in the 1950s. But in 1961 she really starts moving. She becomes the first female partner at Merrill Lynch. And she's also the first woman employee to become a stockholder of the company. In 1964, the New York Times runs an article on her because she is absolutely skyrocketing to the top of Merrill Lynch at this point. And they ask her basically, what is her secret? And the New York Times has this fantastic quote that says, apart from jousting with men in the brain department, women analysis are distinctive in one respect. Most of them remove an hearing while telephoning, which I thought was cool. So I guess the secret to success is remove your hearing when you're picking up the phone and you'll do just fine. So shortly thereafter, she becomes the first woman to be elected as vice president of Merrill Lynch, and also the first woman of any worldwide investment firm to be named at the vice president level in 1967. And she will get an honorary doctorate in 1977, and by 1978, she's named managing director of Merrill Lynch Capital, and she's the first woman ever to be named to the post. So she was running the whole show by 1978. So she was certainly a powerhouse. All right. So another powerhouse of alumna is Anna Scola-Sciardello, who I'm happy to say her family is with us today. Anne graduates from Albertus in 1951 with a major in science. And although the 1951 yearbook predicts that Anne will be inaugurating the home economics major at Albertus in her future, she had other plans. There we go. She becomes a scientist in her own right. So she works alongside Dr. Dorothea Horseman at the Yale School of Medicine, and starts in the preventative medicine department in 1952. Dr. Dorothea Horseman actually is the first woman appointed as a professor at the Yale School of Medicine, so we have many women of firsts here. And together, she and the rest of the team will develop a vaccine for the polio virus. And in 1955, Anne's name is published alongside Dr. Dorothea Horseman and Dr. Robert McCollum in a number of clinical journals. But what's important to note here is that it was this research that helped to inform Dr. Albert Sabin's work to create the Sabin vaccine, which is that oral polio vaccine from the 1960s. So Anne will leave the Yale School of Medicine in 1957 to raise her family, but she eventually does return to science, and this time as a school teacher. So she will teach junior and high school science in Hamden until her retirement in 1996. So continuing with a woman of first and a trailblazer in her field, we meet Mary Benevento. And she was the director of athletics and an adjunct professor at Albertus from 1952 until 1980. So from there we go. So from 1940 to 1966, she was a referee in girls basketball. And this was a first for the New Haven public school system. They usually had men in athletics, but even coaching women athletes. But now we have a female coach coaching women. At the same time, she also served as the state chairman for the recreation of the Connecticut Women's Board of Officials. And during that role, she brings different sports to Albertus. So she brings fencing, skiing, and judo to course offerings. She will attain national recognition with the Richard C. Lee High School in 1966 when she becomes the first woman in New England and possibly the nation to be named the athletic director at the high school. And in 1971, she was the first woman to be named supervisor of health, physical education, and athletics for the New England public schools. Keep in mind, she's also still running athletics at Albertus while she's doing all this. I don't know how in the world she had time. So she is recognized by the community. There we are. Yes. She's recognized by the community in 1977 as the first woman to be selected by the New Haven Tap-Off Club to be inducted into their Hall of Fame. And in 1985, she's honored with an honorary doctorate for her role as an outstanding educator and trailblazer in the field of athletics and education. And she'll retire in 1980. All right. So perhaps instructed by Mary Benevento is Margaret Peggy O'Shaughnessy Heckler. So Margaret graduates from Albertus in 1953 and has an incredible law career. So similar to Judge Burns, she was the first to attend Boston College Law School. She becomes a Massachusetts congresswoman, and her career takes off from there. So she serves in Congress from 1966 to 1983. And it's during this time when she's at the forefront of the movement for women to open their own lines of credit. So they can open their own bank accounts, they can have their own credit cards without their father or husband's approval. And in 1972, Albertus awards her with an honorary doctorate, but Heckler did not stop there. In 1983, she was chosen by President Ronald Reagan to become the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and she will serve in that role from 83 to 85. And she's then appointed to serve as the first female U.S. ambassador to Ireland from 1985 to 1989. So we can pause here and let her tell you a little bit about how that works. This will work. There we go.
May I just say, Mr. President?
Madam Guest.
Not quite. Mr. President, I'd like to say that I've had a really rewarding and challenging career in public service. In serving as a member of Congress for 16 years and having the honor of being appointed by you, sir, to represent you, carry your portfolio of health and human services. These have been very important opportunities for public service, which has really been my life. Now that you have offered me the post of ambassador to the Republic of Ireland, I see a new opportunity for public service. And I think every American of Irish ancestry can appreciate the special place that Ireland is to each of us. It is especially special at this time as we hope there will be some movement toward the reconciliation of the most serious and difficult issue in that country. I look upon your trust in me as a new facet of a public service career. I thank you, Mr. President, for the faith that you have reposed in me. It has been an honor to represent you in the role that I have played. And as I look to the new day and the future, it will be an honor and a very exciting challenge to represent you as an ambassador. And I thank you for the opportunity.
I figured Margaret could explain what she's doing. So what's important to keep in mind here is Margaret is becoming ambassador to Ireland during the troubles, right? So it's the Northern Ireland versus she was able to help both sides negotiate and keep good standing with the United States during her time as ambassador. And also during her time as health secretary, keep in mind this was the 80s, and so she's also dealing with the AIDS crisis while she's in these high positions of office. And so she's truly a powerhouse of a woman. So she retires from public service in 1990 with the end of her time in Ireland and returns home to Massachusetts after that. So now, moving into the 1960s, we have Sister Thomas Swanson, who helped to set the foundation for the art department to thrive at Albertus. So art was always offered at Albertus, but it was always seen as an extracurricular activity, and it really wasn't until Sister Swanson came to campus that the curriculum was put in place and blocks set in motion to have a formalized major in art on campus. So she is an accomplished ecclesiastical artist. She's known for her paintings, tapestry, stained glass windows, and murals. And in 1967, she was selected to represent the Dominican Sisters of the United States on a committee responsible for the planning of the Chapel of the Rosary in the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. And she designs the chapel's ceiling. So the ceiling consists of a dome and two small vaults, and it might be very hard to see, but in all four corners it has the Hail Mary. She does not stop there, however, and in 2006 she uses her ecclesiastical design expertise again, this time for Albertus Magnus College, and she designs the 5 stained glass windows in the St. Catherine of Siena chapel that is on campus. And this particular window is her depiction of the lighthouse at Lighthouse Point here in New Haven, which is one of my favorites of the 5. So she was a lifelong educator. She taught at St. Mary's High School here in New Haven as well as at Albertus Magnus College. She also taught out in Ohio. She served as a missionary in Djibouti, Peru. She taught and worked with women to develop artistic handicraft items for them to sell to help support themselves and their families. And in 2005, she receives the Fra Angelico Award, which is the highest honor bestowed by the Dominican Institute for the Arts to an artist who exemplifies Fra Angelico's dedication to furthering holy preaching through art. And this is especially true in the case of Sister Swanson. All right. So I would like to introduce our last fearless female of Albertus, perhaps one of the most influential female in modern Albertus history, who is President Julie McNamara. So Dr. McNamara actually first came to campus in 1976 as a French professor, and she was appointed as the 13th president of Albertus in 1982. So during her 34-year tenure as president, at the time she was the longest-serving college president in Connecticut, and she has a number of accolades during her time. So a couple Albertus milestones. In 1985, she leads the effort to have a college go co-ed. So we were an all-female institution for the first 60 years of our history. Now we've been co-ed for 40 years. And also at the same time as admitting men to all programs on our campus, she sets in motion the formalization of our athletics program. So people think we built the gym so that men would come, and not really, we just needed a gym. But she gets athletics going. Also in 1992, she stands up our first graduate program, which was a Master of Liberal Studies degree. And we expand our academic offerings to adult learners as well as traditional undergraduate students. And at the same time, we launched the School of New Dimensions, which was a program focused on degrees in the field of business. And through the School of New Dimensions, the student population of the college actually triples. So that was a big accomplishment. And in 2005, Dr. McNamara oversaw the construction of the Tagliatelle Academic Center, which today is home to our science and nursing departments. So that was the first new academic building on campus since 1966 or so. And so she kind of helped bring Albertus into the 21st century. Outside of Albertus, Dr. McNamara holds many distinctions and accolades. I won't name all of them because we'll be here all day. But most notably, she's the first woman to serve on the committee of the proprietors of the Common and Undivided Lands, which is the organization that oversees the maintenance of the New Haven Green. She also has served on the board of Yale New Haven Hospital, the Schubert Theater, and on the board of directors of the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities, just to name a few. So she certainly is a modern, fearless female of Albertus. So as I said, of Mother Stephanie, Albertus is a place of courageous risk takers who fearlessly follow their passions to find their purpose. So from 1925 to 2025, Albertus has been generating leaders, trailblazers, innovators, people who aren't afraid to go where no one has before, and even though they hear the word no or maybe, they still go after it. And it's still true today, so even though our students look a little bit different today, you can see them on the right. And I love the juxtaposition of these two pictures. The first photo on the left is from 1940, and we have kind of the same shot in 2025 of students walking down the sidewalk of campus. And they're exactly like their predecessors. So they continue to follow this legacy, and although you may not know them by name, you certainly know their impact and the impact of Albertus as well. So there are certainly more stories to be told than what I've covered here. A few of them can be found in my book, Fearless and Endless Truth, which if you're interested in purchasing, there's information at the back of the room on how to do that. And this certainly was not a comprehensive history, but just a quick little overview and snapshot of some of the fearless females and fearless falcons at Albertus. So thank you all so much for your time and attention. And are there any questions?
Yes, you mentioned the school was opened in 1925. Like when Black College was proposed, was there any opposition to this college for women and youth?
Not that I know of from the local community. As I said, when the Mother Moen introduced the idea, the Dominican sisters were like, "Whoa, we're already doing this. It will take up too many time and money and resources." But the advantage that Albertus had is they already had St. Mary's Academy here in New Haven, which was a Catholic high school. And so the legend goes was that Mother Moen was visiting St. Mary's, and she was speaking with a parent, and the parent says, "I want to send my daughter to college, but I want it to have a Catholic orientation," which was something that Smith and Vassar did not have. So Mother Moen, as the legend has it, says, "Well, we can do that." And so she opens the college. So as far as I know, it was very well received. The president of Yale at the time came to the opening of the college in 1925 and called Albertus Yale's little sister. And we actually had the same admissions requirements as Yale at the time. So there's a great quote from the dean, I believe, who said, "If you can't get into Vassar or Yale, you can't get into Albertus." So it was very well received. Yeah. Yes.
There was difficulty getting the college accredited with the state.
Yes.
They did run into opposition there. The archives though don't tell you the reasons why. A couple of things could have driven that. One was when you look at the population of Connecticut and the number of colleges, there could have been some hesitation about that. And then I think we also have to remember in the 1920s, you had very strong immigrant populations coming in, and there was, anti-immigrant opposition, and they, so it was sometimes difficult for the students, because we've always had a lot of first-generation students at the college. But we don't really know actually why the opposition. But I think either one of those two, or it could be a little plan.
Thank you.
I'd like to add, though, that Albertus did receive full accreditation the same year Yale did in 1939.
Yes.
So,
So in case folks couldn't hear, the challenges Albertus faced was in accreditation, not so much of the funding.
Right.
Yes, sorry.
What brought Madam Bovary back to Albertus, brought her to the gate from Germany? What drove that?
Sure, and so Madame Bovary, as I said, was originally from Boston, so her family was here. And she actually was very close personal friends with, oh dear, the sister-in-law of the president of Yale. And so when this college opens up down the street from Yale, I believe she gets a letter and it says, hey, are you interested in coming in and teaching? And so she meets with Professor Magnus Mosley, who's the provost at Albertus and also a professor at Yale. And she likes it so much that in October of 1927 she comes back. So yeah, it's quite fascinating. We do have the correspondence to her daughter where she's trying to figure out what she needs to do.
Your husband ever come to the gate?
Not that I know of. I think she and her husband mainly stayed in Germany, and then they also have a lab in Italy, I think in Naples, and so they spend a lot of their time there. So I don't think she had an opportunity to come back to the States as often as she probably would like. Yes.
20 years, Albertus gave classroom space and office space to the Institute for Learning and Retirement under Dr. McNamara. And they were the only college to be responsive to the desire of older people to keep on learning. We owe them a great deal.
I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Is the campus the same now as it was in 1925?
Yes, it is. So in 1925, we had Rosary Hall, which is the building that is featured on the cover of the book. We purchased the Stoddard estate, so it was their mansion and then 10 acres of land. So Rosary Hall today is our library, and our joke is nothing has changed, we just added electricity and Wi-Fi. But it looks very much the same. And then over the course of 100 years, we've just kind of bought up all the neighbors, and now we have a 50-acre campus.
Oh, wow, that's good.
Anybody else? All right, well, if there aren't any more questions, thank you all so much.